Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of EnRICHment, where we talk to entrepreneurs and small business owners about how they can be more competitive against their bigger competition. So this week, we're going to talk about something that'll hopefully make you think just a little bit. We often wish that we could be someone else, at least for a while. As children, we used to pretend and play act. And even as adults, we fantasize about being someone else. We flock to movies like Victor Victoria, Mrs. Doubtfire, Tootsie, or the more recent Catch Me If You Can. All of these movies have one thing in common. They all feature an imposter. No one, especially in the business world, wants others to think of them as an imposter. So why do we often do it to ourselves? Although we've worked hard to get where we are, we sometimes forget the time and the effort, the hours of study, and the years of experience, direct or indirect, that lead us to where we are. These self-doubts have a name. It's called Imposter Syndrome. It can make us feel like a fraud and that we're not up to the task. In fact, 70% of us fall into this trap at one time or another. In the late 1970s, psychologists Pauline Rose Clance and Suzanne Imes noted three critical attributes of the imposter syndrome. Number one, thinking that people have an exaggerated view of your abilities. Number two, the fear of being exposed as a fraud. And finally, the continuous tendency to downplay your achievements. As explained by these researchers, imposter syndrome typically shows up when we decide to take on a new role, a new service, new responsibilities, and it can strike any time. It reveals itself in feelings of self-doubt, anxiety, and guilt. It can even cause us to sabotage our own success, obsessing over minor mistakes or working twice as hard to prove ourselves to others. Now, most articles that deal with overcoming imposter syndrome talk about celebrating your past successes, talking your feelings over with others, being kind to yourself, and setting attainable and realistic goals. However, I found an article by Zach Slayback that I think is especially relevant to entrepreneurs and small business owners. If we look around any room of entrepreneurs or small business owners, pretty much everyone has their own unique story as to how they got to where they are. However, although it's changing, the world is still hung up on credentials, such as where you went to school, your MBA or your PhD, and your certifications or your social pedigree. As Mr. Slayback explains, these things are irrelevant to our success. Each of us has experience and knowledge that no one else has. And these enable us to think in ways that no one else can. They facilitate our ability to do things in ways that no one else can. Again, as defended by Mr. Slayback, we shouldn't let lack of credentials convince you that your success isn't warranted. Know that even the so-called experts often feel the same way. Becoming a real expert is more a function of working harder than anybody else than it is hoop jumping or pedigree. So the next time you find yourself feeling like an imposter, instead of worrying about your lack of this or that, focus on what you've accomplished. Go back over what your clients have said about your work. There is absolutely no one who brings to the table the unique skills, education, and experience that you do. In many ways, they can't hold a candle to you. So don't allow yourself to stand in anyone's shadow. Let your light shine. Well, that's it for this week. I have two quotes. I couldn't decide. They were both so good. This one is from St. Francis of Assisi. All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. And this one from Martha Fuller if you have knowledge, let others light their candle from it. What could be better than that, right? Well, I hope you got something out of that. If you have any questions, you'd like to talk about anything we just discussed, send me an email, rich@speakingofsuccess.us. And I understand next week is Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday with their loved ones. And hopefully I'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.